Welcome back to another episode of Rob Sports. And as you can see by the title and by the thumbnail, today we're going to be breaking down some film on Jahmyr Gibbs. So the very first play, man, we got some physical running from Jahmyr Gibbs. You see that he was able to hit the left A gap between the center and between the left guard. You see right here. And then he showcased good physicality, good contact balance on being able to kind of just take that defensive lineman head on in the A gap and was able to bounce off of that tackle, stay on his feet, and be able to run for some additional yardage. So like I said, that's some pretty strong running, especially for a guy with his size. Looking at Jahmyr Gibbs' size, I feel like he puts on for the smaller backs and showcase that they're just not that. You can make it in the league with not being an ideal prototypical size. Obviously, he's a smaller guy. He has phenomenal speed, but then, like I say, the very first play, you see him being able. He showed the cases that he's not just a speed back. For one, most of the time, speed backs want to be able to get to the outside to probably try to minimize the contact. But for him, being able to hit that A gap and then being able to to go head on with a defensive lineman and being able to win that matchup, that showcases that he does have that mentality to say, okay, well, you know what? I can run away from a defense, but if I need to pick up those tough yards in between tackles, I can also do that as well. So he showcases that right here. And then once again, he showcases phenomenal contact balance to stay on his feet and being able to run for some additional yards, get to the second level, and even make number 3 miss. So right here, we got a gotta have a situation. You got a 3rd and 4, and they just pretty much just simply run a QB draw up the middle. It looked like the Buccaneers kind of had somewhat of a light box. You see, you had the deep safety and you had the other safety. He wasn't necessarily deep. I'm not quite sure if they were going to probably run a 2-high post snap look, and just was showing single high look. But nevertheless, they left the box pretty light, so they just pretty much ran a QB draw up the middle. You see that the offensive line does a good job of just being able to secure their blocks. And even if you look at some of the next level guys in terms of the receivers, like number 17 right there, he's able to keep his block to be able to allow Gibbs to be able to get more yards to run. And then it goes into what I always talk about when I talk about running back, especially if you're familiar with my videos. I always say, okay, what can you do on your own? Meaning that, okay, when you get the initial block up front, once the offensive line do their job and you're able to get to the next level, now what can you do? Are you able to make guys miss and be able to run for additional yards, or do you just get tackled and get what only the offensive line can create for you to get with their initial push up front? So right here, he showcases the ability to be able to make plays on his own when he's able to get to the next level. You see, he's able to make one guy miss. Let's take another look at that again. Phenomenal contact balance as well. You see that he's able to make this guy right here miss. Boom, make this guy right here miss. Boom. Like I said, phenomenal contact balance and just being able to maximize on the yards gained on that run play. So right here, we got another guy to have a situation. We got a 3rd and 12. And so far, I've seen most of Jahmyr Gibbs' runs have really been inside runs in between the numbers, like I said, which I'm not going to say is surprising, but, due to his speed and due to his size, you would assume that a lot of his runs would have probably been outside, just trying to be able to run away from defenders, opposed to kind of running in between the tackles, which for the most part is more of a physical style of running. So right here, you have a 3rd and 12 play. So for me, this is one of those plays that's almost equivalent to when I talk about explosive receivers, right? When I talk about, you got some receivers that they can take a simple 3-yard slant, 5-yard hitch, 5-yard out, 5-yard in, just the simplest route, and be able to take it the length of the field for a touchdown, just because they have that explosiveness, that big playability. And that goes into, for me to transition to that into a running back would be guys like Jahmyr Gibbs and Saquon Barkley, guys that can just take a play that is probably supposed to be just let's just try to get as many yards as we can to regain our field positioning for a punt, or to even just try to be able to put ourselves in a good position for a long field goal. But when you have a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs with his vision and his contact balance, the possibilities become a little bit endless in what he can do. So right here, you have an inside run. And like I say, man, once again, offensive line really is just doing their job. So he just does a good job at just kind of being a maze runner and just following his blocks. And then, like, obviously, too, you see towards the end of it, he showcases once again his level of physicality and his contact balance to be able to run through about 2 or 3 arm tackles and being able to get the first down on that play. So right here, we got a red zone possession. And, if you know anything about me, I always talk about the importance of the red zone. Whenever you get to the red zone, obviously you want to come up with points. And I always say, too, that I think that every down in a red zone is a gotta have it down. It's not just a 3rd down or a 4th down. Every zone is a gotta have it, because it's already hard enough to get down there. And when you get down there, you want to be able to come up with points. And then having a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs gives you the option to be a little bit more creative. So one of the things that I always talk about and one of the things that I love is versatility in players, guys that can give the offensive coordinator a little bit more freedom with the play calling, or a little bit more creativity, I will say, just because of more of what they can do. They're not just one-dimensional guys. So right here, you see that he's able to contribute also in the pass game as well, and not just being able to contribute with screen routes or just check down routes out the back in the backfield, but being able to contribute with things that's kind of going down the field, kind of similar to this one right here. So they just run up a pitch and catch. Jahmyr Gibbs does a good job at being able to sell it. I mean, you know, when you look at him right here, he's kind of coming up and he's scooching up, but it's showcasing from a defender's standpoint. They're looking at it and saying, okay, he's looking as if he's going to be standing in the backfield to block. So in their minds, they're saying that's one less person we got to worry about in the pass options. So now for the linebackers, you're trying to figure out, okay, what do I do? Do I kind of just stay in spy Jared Goff, a quarterback who doesn't run, or do I just take the chance of running, being able trying to come downhill and make a blitz, be a blitzer on this play? So it kind of puts them in conflict on what to do. And like I said, Jahmyr Gibbs does a good job at just selling it to the very last minute until Amon-Ra St. Brown is able to run that in route, and then he just comes out of the backfield. Amon-Ra St. Brown's able to pitch it to him. Taking a look at that again, he runs a little in route, catch, pitch. Easy, right? Very, very easy. So that's good play calling from Ben Johnson to be able to draw that up, and then it's even better execution from the players. So for me, if I was an offensive play caller, I would always make sure that in my plays, more times than not, that I had opportunities to be able to have money shots down the field. But then I would also like to have escape situations, like basically pretty much just check down routes to be able to give my quarterback, if anything isn't downfield or if anything isn't elsewhere where we want to go with the ball. If the defense just pretty much covers what we're trying to do very well, just have a little safe option, which would be just like a little check down route, kind of like what they do right here for Jahmyr Gibbs. To look at the play calling, it looks like Cowboys had good coverage downfield. Jared Goff kind of kept his eyes downfield, trying to allow for something to happen. Nothing really ever came open, so he just did a simple check down to Jahmyr Gibbs. And then once again, like I say, you see that he was able to contribute in the pass game with the little pitching catch from Amon-Ra St. Brown. Then obviously, you know, he always is an option too in those little check down routes. If nothing else is downfield, just dump it off to him and he's able to make something happen. But once again, like I said, I love the physicality that he brings. So just look at what he does right here to Trayvon Diggs. And keep in mind, Trayvon Diggs is a big corner. Trayvon Diggs is probably Trayvon Diggs, like he's about 6'2", maybe even 6'3". A pretty solid guy. And obviously you look at Jahmyr Gibbs, he's not the biggest guy, but like I said, man, he packs a punch too as well with being able to run through tacklers, like what he does right here. Taking a look at that again, does a good job at just lowering his shoulder upon contact and then just running through the body tackle that Trayvon Diggs put on him. He didn't wrap him up. He just tried to throw his body into him, I guess, thinking that he's a smaller guy or thinking that he probably was going to run out of bounds. And Jahmyr Gibbs just does a good job at lowering his pad level and just being able to just run through that. All right, so right here we got Jared Goff under center. You got the Lions are in the I formation, which is typically a power formation. You got Jared Goff that's under center. You got a fullback or a tight end that's behind him, and then you got Jahmyr Gibbs that's that's dotting the I. Now, the I formation for me, I'm not really just too big on, just because you got unblocked defenders. And if you look at that play right there was a few unblocked defenders that could have actually had a shot at him. You look at the guy who was coming off, I think, the left side of the formation. He went like right there. Yeah, he comes in and he kind of goes for Jared Goff as if it's going to be some type of play action boot pass. So I guess you do give off the illusion of that. You can sell the play action a little bit better under center. But like I said, I'm not too big on our formation. So far, and obviously we've seen most of Jahmyr Gibbs' damage that we've seen has been in between the numbers. And for me, the biggest surprise was just the level of physicality that he brings, especially by him being a smaller guy. And you're looking at the speed, and a lot of times the speed is what you kind of focus on. So we've seen him be able to kind of just run through defenders, run through arm tackles, run through just, kind of lazy tackling like Diggs tried to just throw your body on him, and he's able to run and bounce off of that. So right here, he hits him with a whole different aspect now, just being able to kind of put a guy on skates. So you look at right there, Amon-Ra St. Brown did a good job at being able to seal off the edge long enough for Jahmyr to get to the second level. And then you look at the safety who was coming downhill. He did a good job at kind of being able to read it. He actually did a good job at staying square, but Jahmyr Gibbs just did a good job at selling this. He shows us if he's going to cut outside, and as soon as the defender cuts outside, he just bounces back inside, and after that, it's just a race to the end zone. So right here, this play right here is another example of what can you do on your own from the running back. So Detroit, honestly, man, it doesn't really like they was doing anything fancy up front in terms of pulling guys or even really in terms of double team. It was just them basically saying, man, we think that we're stronger than you guys up front, and we're going to push you guys up front. We're going to move the line of scrimmage to create lanes for our running back, which they do here. And Jahmyr Gibbs obviously just does a phenomenal job at, once again, like I said, just being a maze runner, just following his blocks, and then also utilizing his what can you do on your own ability to be able to just make guys miss. Like Like I said, for one, he's phenomenally he's I wouldn't say underrated strong, but that's his strength is something that you kind of overlook, like I said, just because of the speed. You're so used to seeing him being able to make guys miss with his juke, with his elusiveness, and then you also see him just being able to run away from defenses. There's sometimes that you don't put enough focus on the running that he does in between the tackles, similar to right here. He just does a good job at just being able to get low, keeping that ball high and tight, keeping it tucked so the defense can't strip it out. And then you look at number 91 too. He was show punching after it. Right, let's take another look at that. You look at number 91 is coming right there. He was show aiming to try to punch after the ball, so he does a good job of just being able to keep that ball high and tight, keep it tucked in, and then, like I said, man, just being able to just run through arm tackles and being able to maximize on the yards gained on that play. So this play right here showcases that when you're dealing with good running backs, sometimes all you need to do is just get one key block and he can do the rest himself. So if you look at this play, you see that the tight end is lined up on the right side of the formation. And as soon as the ball is snapped, he pulls and he gets in front of Jahmyr Gibbs. And see right there, he just takes on the linebacker. So the linebacker was the biggest threat to that play, being able to stop that play in the backfield. The tight end pulls and be able to secure that block for Jahmyr Gibbs. And then after that, it's just him utilizing his speed to be able to just run away from the defense. And like I say, once again, too, when you're looking at running backs, it's one thing to be able to run away from D linemen. It's one thing to even be able to run away from linebackers, especially in today's game, even though linebackers today are much more athletic, they're much more agile, they're much more quicker and faster. But it still is one thing to be able to run away from them. But when you can run away from secondary players, corners, safeties, guys that are typically the more faster guys on the defense, it just showcases the speed that you have as an offensive player or as a running back. So right here, he just does a good job of just showcasing that speed. Like I said, you get the tight end to seal off that block right there, boom, and after that, it's just a foot race to the end zone. And safety kind of was coming down, took a bad angle, and Jahmyr Gibbs made him play for it on this play right here. All right, so this is one of my favorite situations right here, man. You gotta have a situation, but you got a double-headed monster in terms of a gotta have a situation. You got a red zone possession. Y'all know me. I always stress the red zone. When you get down here, you want to come up with points. But not only that, you have a fourth down. You have a 4th and 1. So it goes back to another one of the third down conversions they had. Now, this is on 4th down where they just hand the ball off. So that shows you the confidence that they have in their offensive line for one, but then also Jahmyr Gibbs to be able to make the right reads and be able to hit those gaps and be able to get positive yardage. So right here, they just pretty much run another inside run from the shotgun formation. Offensive line does a good job at just being able to congest things up front and be able to make those blocks. If you look at Gibbs, he kind of sways to the outside as if he was kind of going to go left. And I think that the linebacker, or I think that was the safety number 29, kind of was anticipating him to possibly try to hit the gap that he's seen open to try to fill it to make Jahmyr Gibbs have to run left to right opposed to being able to get downhill. He just kind of makes the wrong read. Jahmyr Gibbs just does a good job at filling it out and just hitting the right gap and being able to not only get the first down and gotta have a situation, but to be able to score the touchdown as well. So right here, we gotta have a situation. We got a 3rd and 9. But before we get into the Jahmyr Gibbs, man, let's just look at this offensive lineman. Let's just look at this right tackle right here, right? Let's take another look at this, man. Look at where this dude is at down the field. So you see that they have him lined up. He's a right tackle. And you got the guy who comes in on a blitz. He just does a good job at just kind of getting in his way and slowing down his path to the quarterback. And then after that, he just pulls and gets out in front of Jahmyr Gibbs to try to create some blocking opportunities down the field to give him more room to run after the catch. That's just phenomenal athleticism. You have to be athletic as an offensive lineman, especially in the National Football League, to be able to do what he just did on this play right here. So now we're going to get into Jahmyr Gibbs. So he just kind of just runs a swing route from the left side to the right side. Jared Goff gets the ball to him in space, and he just does a good job at just kind of do what I call, and I just made this up too, just does a good job at just kind of doing maze running in a sense, kind of just trying to allow for his blockers to be able to set up. And I think that that's the attributes that a good ball carrier has, whether it's a running back or whether it's a receiver with the ball in his hand or a tight end with the ball in his hand in space, is just being able to be a maze runner and just utilizing every block that he has. Right, it doesn't have to be necessarily the most perfect block, but he can just utilize leverage in terms of where he's at to be able to utilize his offense, his blockers to be able to be roadblocks for defenders that might have shots at him. Right here, he just does a good job, honestly, just getting out there in space, running with the ball, just utilizing number 17 down the field, kind of just using him as leverage to be able to just try to maximize on the yards gain on this pass play, on this 3rd down conversion. So right here, you got another guy to have a situation. It's not a third down or a fourth down, but this is a red zone possession. And, you know, I always put emphasis on the red zone. When you get down here, you want to be able to score. A lot of times games won and lost comes down to what you've done in the red zone. So right here, Jahmyr Gibbs just does a good job at just making the second play better than the first play. You see right here, Jacksonville kind of really just did a good job at being able to kind of get a push up front, which kind of led to him running up into his tight end. He's able to think quickly on his feet, bump into the tight end, is able to spin out and then able to run to the outside and be able to outrun a defense for a touchdown. And it goes back to what I said earlier, what I stated earlier in the video. I was like, whenever you get to the red zone, you want to be able to try to preferably run the ball in, just because it just takes a little bit of a stress off the offense. I mean, having to try to pass in these tight, condensed situations becomes much harder, so the risk for turnover becomes much greater. So it's easiest just to be able to hand the ball off to a running back like Jahmyr Gibbs, and allow for him to be able to either run the ball straight in or be able to improvise and still end up coming up with a touchdown on the play. So this year for the Lions, it's going to be interesting just to see how their offensive coordinator move forward with things, because one of the things I would say that Ben Johnson was good at, just from breaking down film on Sam Laporta and then now breaking down film on Gibbs and breaking down film on Amon-Ra St. Brown, he does a good job at finding ways to get his players involved. So if you look at this play right here, it's kind of similar to the play early on where they just kind of run a little swing route, and all they're doing is basically just getting the ball to Jahmyr Gibbs' hands in space and allowing for him to do the rest. Just look at the speed that this guy has, man. Just look at this right here. Runs just a simple swing route. Let's just look at the separation, man. You look at number 33 to 51, then you got number 22, who really was ahead of him and had an angle on him, and he was able to outrun him. And if it wasn't for number 51 with the backside pursuit, man, this play more times than not probably ends up with a touchdown, man. So this guy is lightning quick. Like I said, man, it's a lot to like about him. I mean, from his speed to his physicality to his ball vision, and to just his explosive big play potential. Like whenever the ball hits his hands, he's one of those guys that a defense is holding their breath just because he's one missed tackle, one broken tackle away from a possible touchdown. So this was a good play call. I'm not quite sure if it was intended to go the way that it went. So you got to have a situation of 3rd and 8. And most teams are probably not going to run the ball. Most teams are probably going to try to opt to pass the ball. But I feel like to a degree, they actually caught the Indianapolis off guard, because I think that they were anticipating them to throw the ball too, because they kind of had a light box. But then even if you look, you see the tight end and you see the offensive lineman, they were both able to immediately get to the next level and to be able to get get a block on 2 linebackers to be able to free up Jahmyr Gibbs to be able to get to the next level as well. Once again, like I say, he does a good job at maze running, just following his blocks, allowing his blocks to set up, good field vision, being able to run in between the tackles. And then obviously too, does a good job once he gets the first down, getting his pad level low, lowering his shoulder, running through the tackle to be able to try to pick up as many yards as he can on that play. Also too, like I said, lowering your shoulder for a running back also does a good job at protecting the ball, because it's much harder for those defenders to be able to try to rip, pull, or punch at the ball whenever you drop your shoulder pads, because more times than not, they're going to be coming in contact with your shoulder pads, opposed to you running upright and they're able to tackle your waist. And now that gives them so many different avenues and lanes to be able to try to get that ball free. All right, so we got another guy to have a situation. We got a 3rd and goal. And you know my thing is with the red area, whenever you get down there, you want to make sure that you come up with points, whether it be a touchdown or a field goal, preferably a touchdown. You don't want to get all the way down there just to settle for a field goal. So right here, Jahmyr Gibbs does a good job at, once again, being able to make the second play better than the first play. So this is one of the very rare few plays that Detroit's offensive line kind of didn't be able to block to assignments in terms of, trying to create avenues for Jahmyr Gibbs. You see right here, you got 2 guys that's able to run free, so they never had a chance. So they never really got the edge set. So you had 2 guys that really had a free shot at Jahmyr Gibbs, so he had to go into be able to go into improvise mode. So like I say, once again, what can you do on your own? That's a measuring stick that I look at. And also too, can you make the second play better than the first play? So if all else fails on the first play, do you have the ability to be able to make a play with the second? And right here, he does a good job at that, just being able to avoid being tackled by both of those guys, and then just being able to go and walk into the end zone, staring one of them down for an easy touchdown. So I would say one of the things that surprised me the most about watching Jahmyr Gibbs was, based off of his size, you would assume that a lot of his runs would be more so outside attacking runs. But it's so crazy to me just looking at how dominant he is inside running in between the tackles. Like I said, he does a good job at, I call it maze running. That's what, to me, running inside is, because it's all about, vision, allowing your blockers to set up. And you don't want to be too aggressive to where you don't allow your blockers to set up. But then you also don't want to be too relaxed to where guys are able to close close the distance on you. But he does a good job at being able to live in between, in the gray area of between both, being able to be aggressive, but then also too being patient enough to allow those blockers to set up. So like I say, he just does a good job at just kind of just, you know, almost like a pinball in a sense, bouncing from here, bouncing from there, bouncing from there. And then once again, man, he's so strong and so well balanced to where if you're just thinking that you're just going to be able to arm tackle him, I'm pretty sure a lot of defenders assume that just based off looking at his size. And then when you realize that going up against him, that he's much stronger, much physical, and much more balanced than what you would actually assume, that you can't just arm tackle. You have to put a body on him. You have to get him on the ground, and you have to do a good job at really just rallying to the ball. That way, if he does make the first defender miss or even the second defender, you still got two other guys that got a shot at being able to bring him down. But right here, just a strong run inside and being able to pick up that first down. So right here, we got a red zone possession. We got a gotta have a situation. We got a 4th and goal. And y'all know me, I always talk about, like I say, every time we get to the red zone, I always got to make sure I put an extra emphasis on the importance of it. So when you get to the red zone, every down, in my opinion, is a gotta have it down, whether it's first down, second down, third down, fourth down. So right here, you see that it's a gotta have it. It's a gotta have it situation right here. You got Jahmyr Gibbs matched up on a linebacker. Obviously, that's a mismatch. And like I said, that's why I like guys who's versatile. That's why I like a running back who can do more than just one thing, because now we get opportunities to create these mismatches. If I got a running back that's not really that good of a route runner or that doesn't really contribute to the pass game, now I don't get the opportunity to exploit this, because guess what? If I bring a receiver, they're going to swap out back to match personnel. They're going to swap out backers to match receivers, right? So in order for us to create this mismatch, we have to be able to have a back who can do both things. So you see right here, he does a good job of just kind of running like this little whip route. So like I said, I always talk about when it comes to attacking in one-on-one situations, whether it's a running back on a linebacker, a tight end on a linebacker, a corner on a receiver on a corner, a receiver on the safety, or a tight end on the safety, whatever the case may be. Whenever it comes down to attacking leverage, you always attack the outside shoulder of where you want to go, right? So you see right here, obviously you look at the linebacker. The linebacker is playing towards trying to stop him from getting outside. Jahmyr Gibbs uses that to his strength. So he releases as if he's going to go outside and cut at the pylon, and he just sticks his foot in the ground right there, boom, on this little whip route, and kind of cuts it back in, and he just had this linebacker all on skates right here, man. So this play right here was already won before it was even really ran, you know, just based off of leverage and just based off of looking at the linebacker's hips. And even if this would have, he might have had a two-way go in this, meaning that he might have had an option based off how the linebacker played him. If the linebacker would have played him a little bit more square, he probably would have kept with going towards the pylon, out route, right? But with the linebacker kind of committing to trying to take away that, he opens up his hips right there. So it leaves him vulnerable for the cutback lane, just like how he did right there. So, you know, just nice route running on Jahmyr Gibbs, and then nice catching the ball and being able to secure the catch for the touchdown. So right here, we got a similar play to the red zone touchdown that he had on the linebacker. You got another mismatch on the linebacker right here, number 53. So on this play right here, basically on the other one, he kind of came straight up. Like when he ran that route, he kind of just released kind of out of the backfield and just went straight up vertically. Right here, he kind of goes out a little bit. You know, he veers out as if he's going to be running from the sideline, kind of somewhat like a check down. And then he gets vertical. And then once he gets vertical, it's pretty much like he just ran a slant. But once again, if you look at it, I wish that we kind of could have a better angle at it. You know, I'm sorry about that. I mean, this is the best that I could get on it, but you can pretty much tell for the most part the route and the release that he gave. So obviously, if you're going based off of a leverage standpoint, like I always say that when you're attacking, when you got an offensive player matched up with a defensive player, wherever you're trying to go, you always attack the opposite shoulder. So if I'm trying to get inside, I'm gonna attack the outside shoulder because I want to try to get you to open up. If I'm trying to get inside, if I'm trying to go outside, I'm gonna attack the inside shoulder because I'm trying to get you to open up. So it's no different than right here. And obviously, a linebacker isn't as quick in his hips like a DB would be. So even if he somewhat played this okay, he still would have been out of position just based off of him just not being able to you know, not having that fluidity in his hips, right? And that's why I want a running back, because when you have a running back that can contribute, you create these type of matchups. Jared Goff just does a good job at putting the ball on the money to him and giving him some opportunities to run out the catch. And you know, obviously with the ball in his hand in space, Jahmyr Gibbs is a very dangerous guy. You see right here, he pumps the brakes on this defender that's coming trying to make a tackle on him. Kind of just puts him on the skates like he normally does right there. He kind of should have figured that was coming, and then, you know, he kind of just toyed with number 27 before he went out of bounds. All right, so we got another gotta have a situation. You got a 3rd and 2, and you got a red zone possession. Like I always say, man, red zone, when you get down here, you want to be able to come up with points. And the easiest way to score points in the red zone is just simply running the ball. So right here, you have a 3rd and 2, and it looked like they ran some type of outside zone. Now, the biggest credit I wanted to give on this play right here was number 17. Well, for one, the offensive line and what they were able to do up front. I want to give credit there. But then also look at number 17. So if you know me, I always talk about how everything works as one unit, right? So when you think about a team offensively is dominant on the ground, it's not just the running back. It's not just up front. It's the wide receivers in the next level, tight ends for one, on wide receivers two, in the next level being able to secure their blocks to be able to help with the run game. So if you look right here, you look at number 17, he does a darn good job at being able to kind of seal the edge for Jahmyr Gibbs in the secondary right here. And then, like I say, once he sealed off the edge right there, kind of got in front of the corner. Corner kind of did a good job of trying to shed the block, but at that point it was too late. When you're dealing with a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs, all you need is just one little split second to be able to get in front of the defender, and after that, once he gets going downhill, he's pretty hard to really deal with. So, but like I said, man, number 17 done a phenomenal job at just understanding what was going on, seeing Jahmyr Gibbs coming, and just being able to get in front of number 0 long enough to give his guy a shot at the end zone. And after that, it was just a foot race, and he was able to beat Hufanga to the point, and he was able to come up with a touchdown. All right, so right here, you got them lined up in what would be the I formation. It's almost like an under center pistol. But it would have been an I formation if the tight end would have been directly behind Jared Goff, but opposed to him being directly behind Jared Goff, he was kind of lined over towards the left slope. It's almost equivalent to where he would have been lined up on the line of scrimmage at the tight end position, but he's kind of just 5 yards deep in the backfield. But like they pretty much just run an inside zone. I'm looking at the offensive line, how they're kind of creating double teams, and you look at once again, they got that big old wedge gap, and then it all comes down to on the second level of it is what can you do on your own. So we got you the initial push up front right there. Now what can you do on your own? So you look at the safety. The safety was planning on coming downhill to be able to try to come make a tackle on him. He kind of hesitated, and he allowed Jahmyr Gibbs to be able to kind of have a two-way go. So you look at him. He kind of once again showed as if he was going to attack towards the inside, but then up kind of doing like a little stutter step and bouncing it back towards the outside. So with him doing that, kind of freed up the safety and preventing him from being able to come downhill and make a tackle. He still almost had opportunity right there to make a tackle, but then like I said, man, it just goes back into Jahmyr Gibbs. Like I said, I think on the previous clip that he has a low center of gravity by him being a smaller guy, that it's kind of hard to get him down in a lot of situations, and especially like on plays like this where you kind of just diving at the legs, and he's kind of coming downhill at this point with a full head of steam without actually putting a body on him, man. More times than not, he's probably going to be able to slip out of those arm tackles just like how he did right here. And once he made that safety miss, it was just a race to the end zone for a touchdown. I hope that a lot of my younger running backs are watching these videos too, because like I say, man, if you look at a lot of these games from when I'm breaking down film on these NFL players or these elite level players, man, it's not, if you ever notice, they don't do too much. They don't do a whole bunch of unnecessary movement, man. They give you normally one move and they go and they're starting to get into, like I say, when I'm breaking down the wide receivers going up against the DBs, when they're coming off the line of scrimmage, they're not staying stationary. They're making that move and they're going up forward and attacking the distance between them and a corner. Same thing when you're watching Jahmyr Gibbs, when he's making his moves in the open field, he's not doing a whole bunch of stutter stepping. It's just him making something like this. Like I say, him showing as if he's going to cut inside and then just bouncing that thing back to the outside. So it's just pretty much one move and his go, and just relying on your speed and your acceleration to be able to outrun them once you get them out leveraged. All right, man. So what better way to end the video off with than a red zone possession, a gotta have it moment? I always talk about those gotta have it. Gotta have it are normally third downs and fourth down plays, but y'all know about me when I talk about the red zone, because more times than not, games are won or lost in the red zone. So when you get down there, you want to be able to come up with points, and you preferably want to come up with touchdowns. And the easiest way to score in the red zone is by simply just running the ball in. And when you got a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs in the backfield, it makes things so much more easier for you. So right here, they just run a simple inside zone. Now, one thing I will say about him too that surprised me, man, with his speed, I was assuming to see a lot of his damage be done outside the numbers, and I was very, very surprised at how much of an inside in the numbers runners that he is with Detroit. And I'm pretty sure they based it off of scheme wise. Obviously they have a good blocking up front, and in order to be able to dominate inside run, in my opinion, you have to have a dominant up front. It's no ifs, ands, or buts, because if not, then more times than not, you're not going to really get any traction up front, and you're going to find yourself being tackled in the backfield often for either losses or for no gains or very minimal gains. So they do have a good, strong O-line, but I also say too that he does a good job at being able to read those blockers. Like I said, being a maze runner, allowing those blockers to set up. So he has phenomenal vision. And then, two, he has phenomenal contact balance. So he's a lot stronger than what you would assume, too. Like I said, you look at the speed and you're watching tape and you see him running away from defenses and separated from defenses. A lot of times you put so much focus into the speed and you don't really put enough into the strength. So right here, this is one of those plays that showcases you that. So right here, he was supposed to have been stopped short of the touchdown, but he continuously keeps his legs pushing, and then the offensive line comes in and be able to kind of give him a back push on the back end and able to get him in for the touchdown. But like I say, just the willpower to be hit initially by, that looks like that was probably a D lineman or a linebacker, but to be hit initially, and now you have other guys piling up on top of it, and you're steady pushing your legs, and then the offense come give you an extra push and push you forward. You got to have phenomenal leg strength in order to be able to do that. Phenomenal leg strength, phenomenal core strength. You just got to have a lot of strength to be able to do that, especially when you're dealing with the National Football League, because these are all adults, grown men that we're talking about. So like I say, man, Jahmyr Gibbs is one heck of a back. After breaking down film, I've gained a different level of respect for him because I see that he's a versatile back. I see that he can attack inside the numbers as well as outside the numbers whenever it's called for. You see his contribution in the pass game with the routes, with him being matched up on linebackers, creating those mismatches for gains and for touchdowns. So it's a lot that you can kind of do with him. And then I love the energy too. The fact that, you work so hard throughout the week in preparation to getting prepared for the games, that way once you finally go out there and score and everything is, and everything you practice shows up on game day. I love the energy that he has with the touchdown celebrations. I feel like for me, that's a thing that kind of gets the whole offense rolling and it kind of gets you going. You know what I mean? I feel like it's an added level of energy that you kind of got to have in a lot of ways. So I feel like he's that energy, that heartbeat as well, too, to just kind of get guys going with the touchdown celebrations and things like that. Not just him. I know Amon St. Brown do it too, but I'm just saying, like, specifically for this video right here, that's something too that I feel he brings to the game as well. But man, if you guys did enjoy this video, do me a big favor, man. Smash that thumbs up button. Also, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. When you subscribe, make sure that you got that notification bell turned on, and where you be notified every time I upload. And I'll see y'all in the next video.